What's up, guys? Another winning night last night, 2-0. The Columbus Blue Jackets got there, even though they blew a 5-0 lead in the third period. They gave up 5 goals in the third period, blew a 5-goal lead, which is just unheard of, really. And they still won in overtime, so they still hit on the puck line and cashed the money line. So I'll take it, but when you're up 5-0 in the third, I mean, come on, man. You got to put that away. The Blue Jackets suck. That's just ridiculous, but they did get there. So there was that. And then Lamar, nice easy win. Should have been 2 really easy wins. Lamar got there easily, so that was good. The NFL game was complete insanity. I don't think anybody expected that, even though I said that I thought the over was probably the best play in that game, and it was. But come on, you mean I didn't predict that the game would score in the 80s total wise? No, I did not, but I did say it would go over the 34 or whatever, most likely. I kind of wish I played that. They did play looser for sure. That was a game it was just total chaos. And Chargers, I mean, 4 fumbles, -5 in turnovers. What can you even do, man? You do that, you're dead in the NFL, basically. You're not going to win that game. Moving on to today, try to get through this quick. I do have 2 plays. I'll talk about the NBA first because I'm passing. It's rare that I pass on an NBA Friday card, but I just don't like this card much at all. My Celtics are looking for revenge against the Orlando Magic, though, so hopefully that gets there with that. I have no real angle on that at all. Celtics 6-point favorite, 81% of the cash, but 87% of the tickets, so I don't like that they're public and have the cash discrepancy going against them. Please help the Celtics. And then what else we got here? The Wizards, or sorry, not the Wizards, the Pistons, my favorite team to bet last year, but they've been way worse this year. Last year, at least, they were covering the games that I was playing them in. This year, they don't look like they can compete against anybody. They're in a zigzag, though, against the 76ers. The Sixers are up from 15.5 to 16 as a home favorite. You don't see NBA favorites of that size very often, but that is the case with one of the best teams versus one of the worst teams. 85% of the tickets on the Pistons, but 84% of the cash. So it looks like the Sixers are moving up, and they're actually anti-public at this point. Somehow it looks like Detroit is kind of the public road dog, even though they just lost by 18 at home to the Sixers. So it's kind of this road reversal revenge angle where the Sixers covered the number that they're laying now. They covered that on the road against the Pistons. So I would think that the public would not want to touch the Pistons at all. So I don't really understand that. I think their feeling would be like, how could they not win by even more at home, right? So I don't know. I'm not interested in getting involved in that whatsoever. I absolutely do not want to do it. No, thank you. And then Houston-Memphis is also a zigzag type of game with a home and homer. Houston won the first game at home by 13, and I think they were laying a lot, 9.5. Now they're laying like 4 at Memphis. I can't get there with any of this. They do have Milwaukee next, so it is a look ahead. So possibly Memphis would be the lean there. Rockets a 4-point road favorite there. Memphis has 86% of the cash on them and 77% of the tickets. So it does look like the market read would be a little bit on the Grizzlies, even though it looks like they do have more, they are the more public team there with more of the action, but it does look like they have the cash discrepancy on them as well. So I would look maybe to go with the zigzag there. But if the Rockets were laying 9.5 at home and the line is shifted by 5.5, that's a little bit of an extreme shift, and it doesn't totally make sense if the Rockets won by that much at home. Why would the line not have the Rockets favored by a little bit more? I don't know. But at the very least, the line looks suspicious, I think, and it looks probably too easy to take the Rockets there. So those are my feelings in NBA real quick. Really not much going on there. Nothing there. NHL, I have 1 play. Let's talk about that first. I'm not going in the usual order that I go in. I think there is a strong go against team here in the NHL, but is there anything else that I was going to mention in the NHL real quick? I thought there was one other player I was going to say this team is like kind of not in a good spot, but yeah, I guess it's Arizona. Arizona's returning from a road trip. 3-game road trips. So that's not the best spot for them. It took them out east. They lost all 3 games, but of course they lost to Boston. No shame in that. They lost to Buffalo pretty badly, but that was sandwiched in between Boston and Pittsburgh, 2 better teams than Buffalo, I would say. So I don't know. But they're returning home from going 0-3 on the road trip. They have 2 days off, so that kind of mitigates like that distraction angle. And they don't really have a bigger game up ahead. So that's why I don't quite want to get here and fading the Arizona Coyotes. But usually when you return home, it is a distraction spot. I just think it's mitigated a little bit by the fact that they don't have a bigger opponent coming up next. And they have extra days off there, 1 extra day off. They've 2 days off there. But the knee-jerk reaction from the betting public when they see a team that's like an okay team like Arizona and they're playing a bad team like San Jose here, they'll look at that road trip and say, well, they're returning home now and they're going to bounce back. And that just tends to not be the case because it does tend to be a distracted spot. But I don't want to get there on San Jose either because San Jose just beat the Winnipeg Jets and they're on a pretty grueling stretch of games here where going back to November 30th, I guess we can go back that far. They lost at Boston to start this long road trip, beat New Jersey on the road, lost by 1 at the Rangers. And that was a game where I think they blew a big lead in that game or something like that. Lost by 1. Then they won in overtime against the Islanders, won in overtime against Detroit, lost in a shootout at Vegas. That was a crazy road trip for San Jose there. A 7-game road trip, I believe, where they actually won 4 of those games. They actually played well on the road trip against some pretty tough competition. They came home. They had they only had 1 day off, and they came home. So that was kind of a bad distracted spot, but it was against Winnipeg, and they beat Winnipeg. So another fairly big win, good win for the Sharks there. Now they go back out on the road to face Arizona, and they do have Colorado up next. So I don't think San Jose is in that good of a spot either. They also have 2 days off, but I'm not going to get there playing San Jose because I think they're in a bad spot as well. Arizona and San Jose both in bad spots there. And the line, because Arizona's in the distracted return home spot, and San Jose's just faced a really tough schedule as of late. So I can't really do it. Arizona's up from -200 to -203 on the money line at home. I don't see ticket and cash percentages on it. The NHL game I'm actually on, and it looks like this line is moving, man. I did not get the best number on this, but I'm fading the Carolina Hurricanes. It looks like they're down from -190 to -164 on the money line. A real quick drop on the money line there, but I think getting Nashville is like a decent size underdog wherever you can get it in like kind of like the 150 range. I think is a good play. Getting Nashville as the underdog here. I think this is a bad spot for Carolina. Carolina's got 67% of the tickets on them, but 66% of the cash is on Nashville on the other side. So we have what looks like a pretty strong cash discrepancy on Nashville and reverse line movement on Nashville. So it looks like this is definitely there are strong market indicators on Nashville here on the Predators. And I think there are good reasons why that is the case. Carolina's in the worst spot on the board here, man. They are coming home from a long road trip, a 6-game road trip where they lost the first 4 games on the road trip. Most of them to pretty good or decent teams, really. And then they won the last 2, finishing with a win against Detroit, which was the better of those 2 wins on the road trip. Now they're returning home with no days off, and they're playing a back-to-back, a 3rd game in 4 nights here, all in different cities. Really tough spot for Carolina here. No rest and a return from a 6-game road trip that goes back to December 4th. It took them up to the Pacific Northwest and then all the way over to Eastern Canada, then to Detroit, and now finally back home to Carolina with no time off. It's going to be a distracted spot, especially when you have no days off. You have to get family stuff in order. I don't think you're going to wind up being totally focused on the Nashville Predators, even though they've been playing better lately. They've been winning a lot of games lately. Their record still isn't really that great. Carolina does have Washington up next, and Washington, I think, is a bigger game for them because Washington is in their division and only 1 point behind them. And Washington has been playing all right recently as well, better than what they did to start the season, I believe. So that's a bigger game for Carolina up on deck on Sunday against Washington, and they do face Vegas after that too. So I think this is a bad spot for Carolina. They return home from the road trip with no rest at all, and they have a bigger game on deck 2 days later. not a good spot at all. Nashville, on the other hand, I think is in a more positive spot, even though they are on a nice win streak. They've won 2 in a row and 5 of their last 6, which might overvalue Nashville in like a typical spot. But when it's facing Carolina, who was a playoff team last year and is known as being one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and Nashville doesn't really have that mystique around them. I think you're still going to find some value on Nashville. And Nashville has 2 days off here as well. So they're the rested team as well. They last did play an overtime game, but it was not, they haven't played since Tuesday, and it was a win over the Flyers, which that's a fine win. I mean, the Flyers are playing decent, but you're going on this 1-game road trip to Carolina if you're Nashville, and you don't really have, I mean, you have Washington up next as well tomorrow, but you've had a couple days off. I think Nashville's going to be focused on this 1 game. You get to go out and you play that 1 game on the road there. Carolina's in the much, much worse spot here. I'm on Nashville. The market indicators are all over it as well. Plus 145, I think, is what I got. I missed out on some of the bigger numbers that were out there. As Carolina opened a big favorite, but I think Nashville's in the much, much better spot. So it is value to get them as an underdog in that range. And then college basketball, I have 1 play. I do lean against St. Francis, PA, I will say. St. Francis, PA, they're coming off 3 straight road games. They're returning home now. They last played Iona, which was on December 10th, and they were a 16.5-point underdog at Iona, and Iona had a decent-sized lead. They were pushing their lead a bit. It was a close game, but Iona pushed their lead a bit in the second half, middle of the second half, and then St. Francis caught all the way up again and actually wound up retaking the lead, I think, or getting really close again, and then just fell short. And when you just fall short as like a huge underdog like that, you're in a really bad spot in the next game, man. It's St. Francis, PA. Ken Pom has them as one of the worst teams in Division I basketball, and they're coming off an almost upset of Iona there. It should have been a pretty big upset as 16.5-point underdogs. I just can't do it because I don't want to lay Mount St. Mary's on the road. Mount St. Mary's does have an SEC school up next in Georgia, so I don't know if that's going to be a look ahead, but I don't know. This is their 3rd straight road game as well, so I can't quite get there with them. The market looks like it's maybe going against Mount St. Mary's as they're down from 8 to 6.5 as a road favorite. Ken Pom only has them at 6. So it does look like the market indicators and the numbers guys look like they might be against Mount St. Mary's here. So I'm just going to stay away. But I don't think that the number guys, I don't think that their plays are so, because they're just all analytics. They're treating these guys as robots, basically, and not as humans. So I think the human element is the stronger element, which is why I'm a situational handicapper like this. St. Francis is in the much worse spot coming off that like near miss or where they just missed as a huge underdog against Iona. So I think they're in the worst spot, but I just can't quite get there laying points on the road like that, even though, and it's against one of the worst teams in college basketball though too. So it's tough to like find value going against a team that's as bad as St. Francis is. Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and UT Rio Grande Valley are in a. I think that's an inter-conference. Is that no? They're in the same conference. I forget. Intra-conference. I don't even know. Whatever the word is. Yeah, I think they're both in the Southland, right? I'm not even sure. But they are. Rio Grande is in the WAC. Never mind. They're in a zigzag. This is a zigzag spot though, because Texas A&M CC just won, or they just lost, at home against UT Rio Grande, as I believe a favorite. I think they were a favorite of somewhere in the vicinity of like 5 or 6 points, and they lost that game. So I think A&M CC is probably in the better spot to exact some revenge here against Rio Grande. So it is kind of like a quick road reversal, like zigzag situation here between these two in-state foes here, lesser Texas teams, I guess. Let's say in Rio Grande Valley, though, they're up from 2.5 to 3 at home. So the market is kind of telling you that Texas A&M CC is the slightly better team, but not by that much. I think Ken Pom probably has this game at around 2 or 3 as well. I would lean very slightly to Texas A&M CC just because they have the quick like road reversal revenge angle there. And then I think Colorado is in a bad spot as well in college basketball. They're just in a kind of a classic letdown spot. I just don't want to get involved in a game where a team is where it's just a mismatch and they're laying, in this case, 21.5 points. Colorado's laying down from 22. So it does look like there is a little bit of movement against Colorado, in agreement with me. Colorado's coming off blasting Miami in shocking fashion. Really, even though I said I leaned Colorado in that game, that the rankings are not indicative of how good these teams actually are. Miami overrated and Colorado a little bit underrated. And Colorado really took it to them and won by like almost 30 points or something like that. Just some crazy outcome there. Big win for Colorado. And now they have to face an in-state little brother in Northern Colorado, even though Northern Colorado not playing very well this year, I don't think. So I can't quite get there with it, but I would lean against Colorado in a letdown spot, kind of a classic letdown spot against a Colorado little brother there. So the motivation, I think, would be more on the Northern Colorado side. That's the way I look at that one. What's the play I'm actually on? And this line is moving, man. I got it at a lower number than it is now. Portland State is what I'm on, and they're up from a pick'em to what looks like a 2-point favorite now. But if you can shop around, you might be able to get something in the vicinity of what I got. I laid 1 with Portland State. I think if you can lay anything like under 2, I think it's probably what you want to try to do there. Maybe even up to 2 might be okay. I think KenPom has this game at 2. This is a bad spot for San Diego, man, even though Portland State has a good record, so they do look like they're a pretty good team, which they are. People might say, hey, both of these teams have good records, though, and think that there might be value in getting San Diego as an underdog at home. But I don't think that's the way to look here. The odds makers are telling you Portland State is the better team here, as they are the road favorite. San Diego, they're in a letdown spot, man. Both of these teams have had some days off. They haven't played for about a week. I think they last played on Saturday. San Diego pulled off a big upset against a Pac-12 team, man. They beat Arizona State, even though Arizona State might be a little bit down. They were a team that was in the tournament last year. Arizona State was an 8.5-point favorite, and they were out to a big lead in that game, double-digit lead, and San Diego came all the way back in the second half, made a huge comeback, and wound up winning the game and pulling off the upset against one of the biggest opponents that they face this year. That's a big win, even though it's one of the maybe lower Pac-12 teams there in Arizona State. Arizona State, probably not the worst Pac-12 team either. Big win, big upset for San Diego. Now I think they're just in a letdown spot coming off of that. And they actually come off a stretch where they played Stanford, so another Pac-12 team, even though Stanford, I think, is worse than Arizona State. Stanford, probably one of the lowest teams in the Pac-12, but still a Pac-12 team. They played them. Then they played Utah State. Both of those games on the road, pretty tough games. They lost those games both by like 20-something points or whatever. But even so, a stretch of 3 like tough opponents in a row. And now they get Portland State. I think Portland State, even though, yeah, you see their record's good, they're a lower team in the Big Sky there. I think they're flying under the radar, man. They have not faced a tough schedule. The one step-up game that they had really was against Washington State on the road, and they actually played them to within 10, which is not a bad outcome for Portland State there. But Portland State, since then, they've played 2 non-Division 1 teams, like 2 cupcakes, and they won both of those. And I think those are more like tune-up games for Portland State. And in the last game, they only beat George Fox, whoever the hell that is. Is it only one man? I don't know. They only beat George Fox by 6 points. So that's going to make people hesitate and say, wait a minute. Portland, like you just saw San Diego beat Arizona State, and Portland State barely beat George Fox. So they're going to like think that there is value on San Diego as a home underdog here. And I'm telling you that I don't think there is. San Diego's in that prime letdown. So Portland State might be in a spot where they have cause to refocus after not winning by that much against team that's not even in Division 1 and George Fox. If you look at what happened in the game, Portland State was blowing them out of the building in that game in the second half. Portland State was winning by 20 late in that game. They just totally took their foot off the accelerator, I think, and it did get close near the end. The final score was actually like the closest that it was in the entire second half, really, with I think some garbage time points from George Fox there. But that's going to make people hesitate on them, and it might make Portland State maybe recollect themselves a little bit and refocus, because that game did get close in the final minutes there. So that's what I'm doing. I'm on Portland State -1 with San Diego in the letdown spot, and I'm fading the Carolina Hurricanes in hockey and taking the Nashville Predators plus 145 as the underdog there. That's going to do it for me, man. Peace out. Have a nice Friday and happy start to the weekend.